The Warrior of Blood Oath. The sky above Colony 9 was always red, not from the sun, but from the fires of war. For 10 long years, the planet had seen nothing but death. Human soldiers fought against alien clans. Villages burned, mountains crumbled, cities turned to ash, and in the middle of it all stood Commander Varel, leader of the Zurnari Blade Caste. Feared, ruthless, respected by all, she had sworn an oath. Any human who steps on Zurnari ground will die by my hand. She never broke that promise. Not until the day he arrived. Varel stood on the high ridge, her sharp armor catching the wind. Her long silver blade rested on her back, its edges humming with energy. Below her, a human dropship, smoking, damaged, was crashing into the canyon floor. She narrowed her glowing eyes. More invaders. Her second-in-command stepped forward. "Should we wait for a scan, Commander?" She unsheathed her blade. "No," she said coldly. "We finish them before they call for backup." The wreckage was burning when she reached it. Her soldiers moved fast, slicing through the metal, clearing the path. Inside, 3 humans were already dead, burned or crushed. One was alive. Barely. He lay pinned under a broken beam, his breathing weak. His armor was marked with red crosses, a medic. He looked up as Varel approached, his eyes cloudy but alert. "Kill me quick," he whispered. "I hate long goodbyes." Varel aimed her blade at his throat, but she paused. There was no weapon near him. No anger in his eyes, only pain and something else. A calm she didn't understand. "Why are you here?" she demanded. He coughed. "To help survivors. I wasn't even supposed to be on this drop." She narrowed her eyes. "You expect me to believe that?" "No," he said. "But it's the truth." She stepped closer. "I should kill you." He looked at her. Really looked. "You've lost someone, haven't you?" Her blade trembled. "I've seen that look before," he added, "in people who had everything taken from them." Varel didn't answer. She raised her weapon higher. Then a shot rang out. A hidden drone, buried in the wreck, activated and fired right at her back. The human medic moved. Fast, too fast. He threw himself forward, into the path of the bullet. It struck him in the shoulder. He hit the ground with a groan. Varel turned, shocked. The drone fired again. She slashed it in half in one clean strike. Silence returned. She turned back to the human. He was bleeding, badly, but alive. She knelt beside him. "Why?" she asked quietly. "You were about to be shot," he said, grimacing in pain. "But I was about to kill you." He smiled faintly. "Didn't feel right to let you die before you changed your mind." She stared at him, confused, angry, shaken. This wasn't how humans fought. This wasn't how they acted. They destroyed. They burned. They didn't protect their enemies. Her soldiers stood nearby, watching. One stepped forward. "Commander, do you want us to finish him?" She stood slowly, looked down at the bleeding human, then said, "No." The soldier hesitated. "But he's human." "Yes," Varel said, voice low. "But he didn't act like one." She turned to the others. "Take him. Treat his wound. I want answers." That night, Varel sat alone in her war tent. She replayed the moment over and over, the way he looked at her, the way he moved, the way he bled for her, a human, for her. She didn't know his name yet, but she would, because something deep inside her had shifted. Her oath had been broken, but her heart was just beginning to wake up. The human who didn't fight back. The human's name was Elias Wren. That's what he told Varel as he lay on the metal table inside her base's infirmary, his shoulder freshly sealed by a Zurnari healing pod. Varel stood silently in the corner, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. Her soldiers had wanted to throw him into a cage or out the nearest airlock, but she'd given a direct order: "Do not touch him." They obeyed, but they didn't understand. Neither did she. Elias was quiet as he recovered. He didn't argue. He didn't plead. He didn't even ask why he was still alive. He just watched the lights above his head and whispered, "Strange ceiling. Not used to seeing one that doesn't have bullet holes." Varel stepped closer. "You bled for me," she said. "Why?" He turned his head slightly. "Because you looked like someone who didn't deserve to die that way. You don't even know me. I didn't have to." Varel narrowed her eyes. "Do you know what I've done to your kind?" "I read the files," Elias said. "Your blade has ended dozens of human lives. I also saw the damage we've done to your people. You hate us, I get it." He paused. "But hate doesn't stop bullets." She stared at him for a long time, then turned and walked away. The next day, Elias was still there. Alive. Healing. Her second in command, Rallis, stormed into her quarters. "This is madness," he said. "You promised blood for every human footstep on our soil. That oath made you commander. Now you guard a Terran like he's one of our own." Varel didn't raise her voice. "He saved my life," Rallis hissed. "Once. For show. Maybe. He was trained to act soft, to confuse you. Or maybe not every human is what we were told," she said coldly. "He will divide us," Rallis warned. "Others are watching. They question your strength." "Let them," she said. That evening, Varel sat across from Elias in the medical wing. She brought him food. Not the bland protein packs the soldiers ate, but real food. Hot soup, spiced roots. A gesture. He looked at the tray, surprised. "This for me?" "I don't eat alone," she said simply. He smiled and took a bite. "Not bad. Tastes like earth curry. If you replace the chicken with something mildly venomous," she almost smiled. Almost. They ate in silence for a while, then Elias asked, "Why did you make the oath?" Varel looked down. Her fingers tensed. "My sister," she said. "She was only 13. She went to help dig out survivors after a skirmish. A human airstrike flattened the camp." He was quiet. "I'm sorry." She looked up. "I thought killing every human I found would make that pain smaller. Did it?" "No," she said. "But it made me stronger. Or, it made me look strong." She stood to leave. But before she could, Elias said something that stopped her. "If I die, here, make sure it's not because of your oath. Make sure it's because of who I am." She turned slowly, then walked away, again without answering, but the seed was planted, and it would grow faster than she expected. The next morning, a group of her soldiers surrounded Elias's bed while Varel was in a strategy briefing. They didn't speak. They just stood there staring. One finally stepped forward. "My brother died screaming in a Terran prison ship. Did your kind scream when they burned our skies?" Elias looked up at him, calm. "Probably. War doesn't care about who screams." The soldier pulled out a blade. "Then maybe you understand what comes next." Before he could move, Varel's voice cut through the air. "Stand down." She stepped into the room like a storm. The guards backed away. Even Rallis looked uncertain. "You disobeyed a direct order," she said. The soldier bowed. "Forgive me, Commander, I thought—" "You didn't think," she snapped. "You reacted, and reactions cost lives." She turned to Elias. "Come with me." He followed her out of the med bay, still limping slightly. They walked in silence until they reached the edge of the camp. The red sky above shimmered with ash clouds. Far in the distance, ships flew like silver birds across the dying light. Varel turned to Elias. "You shouldn't be alive." "I know. Your presence makes everything harder." "I know. And yet, you're still here." "I didn't ask to be," he said. "But I'm not running either." She stared at him. "You don't hate me?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "You're asking that when I'm the one with the bullet wound?" That made her laugh, soft, dry, and surprised, for the first time in years. Later that night, as the soldiers whispered about rebellion and the humans prepared a secret retrieval mission, a message flashed across an intercepted comm line. "Target alive. Zernari commander may be compromised. Send extraction force and terminate both if necessary. Hunted by both sides. The red moon rose over the camp, and everything was quiet. Too quiet. Commander Varel stood on the rooftop of her command tower, arms folded behind her back, eyes scanning the horizon. Her soldiers were tense. Her name no longer brought silence. Now it brought doubt. A human was still alive under her protection, and her people were watching her, some with confusion, others with rage. Elias sat in the med bay, healing slowly. His shoulder still hurt, but he refused more painkillers. He wanted to stay clear, alert. Something about the air felt wrong. Off, too cold, too still. Then a soft voice whispered behind him, "They're coming for you." He turned. A young alien. Nurse stood at the door, scared, pale. She whispered, "Not just humans. Our own." Elias slowly stood. "Who sent you?" She shook her head. "No one, I heard them. The soldiers. They said they'll take you into the woods tonight. Say it was an accident, say you ran." Elias sighed. So much for the peace talks. The girl stepped closer. "Commander Varel doesn't know, but she's in danger too. They said if she keeps protecting you, they'll replace her." At the same time, on the far side of the canyon, a human Black Ops ship landed quietly under a stealth cloak. Inside, a commando named Captain Heller checked his gear. "Objective confirmed," he said. "Zernari commander has flipped. She's harboring a live Terran asset. Orders are clear, extract the medic, kill the alien if she resists." His second-in-command frowned. "But sir, the reports say she hasn't hurt him." Heller tightened his gloves. "Doesn't matter. A human who sides with an alien killer becomes a threat." He loaded his rifle. "Neutralize both." That night, Varel sat alone in her chamber. She held her sister's old bracelet, bent and burned, found years ago in the ashes. She remembered her vow, the hate, the fire, and the way that human had thrown himself between her and death. "Why?" she whispered to the stars. "Why did you bleed for me?" The alarms went off just before midnight. "Commander," shouted a guard. "Infiltration team, north side. Human signatures, high-tech weapons." Varel jumped to her feet. Then a second voice. "Commander, Elias is gone. The medic's bed is empty." Elias ran through the canyon paths, heart pounding, not away, but toward Varel's tower. He had overheard the plan. They were going to ambush her, use the human assault as cover, blame the chaos, kill her from behind. He didn't care if he bled again, he just knew one thing: she had spared his life. Now it was his turn. In the main command yard, chaos had erupted. Zernari soldiers shouted, blades drawn, black-armored humans, broke through the walls, plasma rifles blazing. But it wasn't a war. It was a trap. Varel fought like the legend she was, slicing through 2 attackers in seconds, her blade humming with power. But then, a shadow moved behind her. One of her own officers raised a plasma knife and moved in silently. Varel. She turned just as Elias crashed into the assassin, knocking them both to the ground. The blade sliced Elias across the back. He screamed, but stayed on top of the traitor, pinning them long enough for Varel to drive her blade straight through the soldier's chest. Blood hit the ground. The air went still. Elias collapsed beside her, panting. "You owe me now." He grinned. She knelt beside him, grabbed his hand. Her voice was shaking. "You fool. You could have died. You were worth it." The fighting faded. The surviving humans retreated. The Zernari stood still, staring at the human bleeding on their soil. Not as a prisoner, but as a brother in battle. Varel stood, turned to her soldiers and shouted, "Are there any more who believe I am unworthy to lead?" No one moved. No one spoke. Not after what they had seen. Later, in the med tent, Elias winced as Varel cleaned his wound herself. He smirked. "Guess we're even now." She looked down. Not even close. He reached for her hand. So what? Now? She stared into his eyes. They'll come for both of us. Humans. My people. We broke the rules. Broke the war. He nodded. Then maybe it's time we find somewhere that doesn't need rules like that. Her lips tightened, almost smiling. Then we run. Far above the planet, an encrypted message played on loop. Human medic Elias Wren and Zernari commander. Varel have joined forces. Their blood alliance threatens long-term conflict stability. Authorization granted. Kill order active. Classified as traitors to both species. The truth beneath the war. The stolen ship rattled as it entered deep space. Elias sat in the co-pilot's chair, sweat on his brow, the fresh scar on his back throbbing with every jolt. He glanced sideways at Varel, who flew the ship with steady hands and sharp eyes. Neither of them spoke for a while. Too many questions, too many broken things behind them. They were running, not from war, but from the ones who wanted the war to never end. Where are we going? Elias finally asked. Varel answered without looking. There's an old science station in the Hollow Belt, abandoned during the third cycle of the war. My sister once hid there. Elias nodded. Hiding sounds good. We won't stay long, she said, but it holds records, logs, proof. Proof of what? Varel's voice dropped lower. That the war wasn't just born from hate. It was fed. On purpose. The station appeared after hours of silent flight, floating like a skeleton in the black, wrapped in dust and forgotten power lines. They docked in silence, moved through dark corridors. No lights. No sounds, just the hum of weak power systems, trying to wake. Inside one of the server rooms, Varel began typing on a half-cracked console, her long fingers moving quickly. Elias shone a flashlight over the wall. It was covered in holograms, photos of soldiers, lists of names, energy signatures, and something else, documents with both human and Zernari seals. He stepped closer. Wait a minute. He said. These are communications between leaders from both sides. Varel nodded grimly. My sister was a data runner. She uncovered this during her final mission. They never meant for peace to happen. Elias scanned the files. Some were orders for false flag attacks. Others were battle reports that never happened, but were broadcast anyway to trigger more violence. One message. Made his blood run cold. Supply arms to rogue human cell. Blame Zernari ambush. Retaliation expected. Estimated civilian loss. Acceptable. Elias sat back hard. They started fake attacks. On their own people? Not everyone, Varel said quietly. Only those in power. On both sides. They needed the war to continue. It brought credits. Resources. Fear. Control. Elias whispered. My entire unit died thinking they were protecting refugees. We walked into a death trap. Varel closed her eyes. And my sister tried to stop it. Elias looked around the room. She died for the truth, didn't she? Varel nodded. I never found her body, just this station, and her last message. She pressed a key. A hollow recording appeared. A young Zernari girl, softer features, kind eyes. She smiled faintly and spoke in a shaky voice. If you're seeing this, I didn't make it out. I followed the signals. The truth is worse than I thought. If you ever meet a human who chooses mercy, listen. The message ended. Silence returned. Varel's hand shook. Elias stood beside her. She was brave, he said. Varel whispered. She was all I had. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Now you have more. She looked up at him. He didn't flinch, didn't back away. And for the first time since the war began, Varel's heart softened. Suddenly, a sharp beep echoed from the console. Incoming ping. Unauthorized scan. Elias rushed to the viewport. 3 ships approached from the shadow field. Fast, silent, deadly, black-armored. Unmarked. They found us. he said. They're not here for arrest, Varel replied. Those ships are built to erase. They downloaded the files, every log, every voice recording, every truth. Then they ran. Back to the ship as the station shuddered from the first plasma strike. Varel launched them into the dust field, dodging debris and laser fire. The hull screamed under pressure. Elias pulled up the data console and began uploading the truth across old Terran and Zernari relay points, one by one, signal after signal, each one carrying a headline. The war was never ours. The enemy ships pursued hard. They fired again. The blast struck the rear of the ship. Systems failed. Lights went out. Then, silence. They drifted in the dark, hidden, hurt, but alive. In the black quiet of space, Elias finally spoke. What happens when the truth is out there? Varel stared at the stars. Some will deny it, some will fear it, but some will believe. She turned to him. And that's enough to start a new kind of war. Elias raised an eyebrow. One that doesn't end in blood? One that ends in change. Back on the planet below, a soldier opened a stolen comm device and played a transmission. They lied to us. They lied to all of us. He dropped his weapon and walked away. The last mission they never asked for. The signal spread like fire. Across both human and Zernari space, soldiers and civilians watched the footage. They saw the truth. Secret documents, fake battles, voices from their own leaders lying about the war. Some refused to believe it. But others? Others dropped their guns. Others stopped listening to orders. Something had cracked. And deep in a forgotten dust corridor, aboard a stolen scout ship, Elias and Varel prepared for the mission they never wanted, but couldn't walk away from. There's a weapon, Varel said quietly, adjusting a fractured hologram on the ship's console. It's buried inside a Terran Zernari facility, she continued. One of the old ones built by both sides during the early days of the war. Elias leaned in. A weapon? She nodded. Codenamed Project Ashline. According to my sister's data, it was designed to restart the war if peace ever got too strong. Elias narrowed his eyes. How? By wiping out a major neutral planet, she said, voice cold. The blast would be blamed on whoever they wanted. Instant fury. Instant war. He stood back, stunned. And it still exists? Varel nodded. It's real and it's nearly active. Elias took a breath. Then we shut it down. She looked at him. It's suicide. He smiled faintly. You once said the same about saving a human. She smirked. And look where that got me. They landed just after nightfall. The facility looked like a mountain from the outside, cold, dark, and dead. But inside, deep below the surface, machines hummed, waiting, counting down. They moved through the lower tunnels like ghosts, Varel in stealth armor, her blade on her back. Elias behind her with only a sidearm and a small pack of explosives. They encountered no guards. That was the first bad sign. At the heart of the complex, they found it. A long, black device shaped like a spear, glowing faintly with energy. Around it, old holograms flickered. One showed a human general and a Zernari officer shaking hands, then launching missiles at opposite directions. Elias whispered, They built this together. Varel whispered back, And we'll destroy it together. She stepped forward. But just as she reached for the controls, a cold voice echoed from the shadows. You've come far, Commander. Far enough to die in the right place. Out from the darkness stepped Captain Heller, armored in, black rifle in hand, beside him a Zernari executioner cloaked in red. Both smiled. We let you upload your truth, Heller said. We let you feel like you were winning. You wanted the signal out? Elias asked. Heller nodded. Because once Project Ashline activates, your message becomes part of the story. The traitors lie. Easy to erase, easy to discredit. Elias, raised his gun, but the Zernari executioner moved faster, slicing the weapon in half with a swipe. Varel stepped between them and Elias. "No more running," she said. "You'll have to kill both of us." Heller grinned. That was always the plan. A fight broke out, quick, violent. Varel clashed blades with her Zernari rival, two elite warriors, sparks flying with every strike. Elias ducked behind the console, pulling wires, scanning for the detonation core. Heller opened fire, but Elias rolled to cover, tossing a flash grenade. The room lit white. The Zernari executioner made a mistake, stepped too far, too fast. Varel spun, slid beneath his blade, and drove her weapon into his chest. He gasped and fell, but Heller still stood, and he had Elias in his sights. "Any last words, traitor?" he hissed. Elias looked up, then stepped aside, letting Varel's blade fly from the shadows. It struck Heller clean through the chest. He dropped. Hard. Silence. Varel rushed to Elias. "You okay?" He coughed. "Only got shot a little this time." She half laughed, half sobbed. "You're terrible at staying behind cover," he grinned. "And you're terrible at not saving me." They turned to the console. Countdown, 5 minutes. Elias looked at the core. "We can't just blow it up. The blast would reach 3 nearby settlements." Varel's fingers danced across the display. "Manual shutdown is possible, but only from inside the core chamber." He froze. "Inside?" She nodded. 1 person, sealed door, power burn, fatal within minutes. Elias stepped forward. "Then I'll do it." "No," she said. "You've done enough." He grabbed her wrist. "You have more to live for." She stared at him, then kissed him. Soft. Real. Full of everything they couldn't say during war. When it ended, she whispered, "Exactly. That's why I'm coming back." She entered the chamber. Inside, Varel activated the sequence. Heat rose instantly. Her armor burned, but her hands didn't shake. She looked up at the screen one last time, where Elias watched her from the other side, and she smiled. "I don't want to kill humans anymore," she said softly, "but I'll kill anyone who tries to take you from me." The weapon shut down. The core darkened. Varel collapsed. Later, Elias pulled her from the chamber. Barely, breathing, half-conscious, he carried her into the escape pod, whispering, "Stay with me." Her eyes fluttered open. "I'm not done protecting you." Death or redemption? The escape pod tore through the upper atmosphere, trailing smoke. Inside, Elias gripped the edge of the seat with one hand and held Varel tightly with the other. Her armor was scorched, her pulse faint, but she was alive. Barely. He didn't speak, didn't cry, just stared at her face and whispered, again and again, "Stay with me." The med scanner blinked yellow. Her life signs were dropping fast. The pod landed hard on the surface of a nearby moon, its systems half dead, the hatch hissing open into a thin, icy wind. Elias dragged her into the shadows of a canyon wall, away from the cold light of the stars, and waited. Hours passed. Her breathing slowed, then steadied, then stopped. Elias froze. No. He started chest compressions, pressed the med injector into her neck, shouted her name over and over. Nothing. Then, a weak flicker in her eyes, a whisper on her lips. "You're loud." He dropped beside her, shaking. "Don't do that," he said, voice cracking. "Don't leave me." She smiled faintly. "Not yet." When the rescue signal went out, both human and Zernari factions heard it, and they didn't send guns. They sent witnesses. Too many soldiers had seen the truth now. Too many civilians had heard Elias's broadcast. Too many had watched the weapon shut down. The hate that once controlled both sides was cracking, and when the pod was found, and Varel was carried out wrapped in bandages, something changed. She wasn't called traitor. She was called war stopper. Days later, in a neutral med center orbiting a quiet star, Varel woke fully for the first time. Elias was at her side. He looked rough, tired, but alive. She stared at him. "You stayed," she whispered. He smiled. "You almost died. You think I'd leave before hearing you insult me one last time?" She chuckled. It hurt, but she chuckled. A high-ranking Zurnari elder entered the room, followed by a Terran council officer. Both stood side by side. For the first time in 20 years, the elder spoke first. "You broke every rule." The Terran added, "You defied direct orders, stole ships, released classified data." Varel and Elias sat quietly, waiting for judgment. Then the Zurnari said, "Good." The Terran officer smiled. "Because maybe that's what we needed." Over the next weeks, the leaders released joint statements. The war was not over, not officially, but it had fractured. Truth was stronger now, and the world couldn't go back to lies. Elias and Varel were offered medals. They refused. They didn't want awards. They just wanted peace. On a small green moon where no battles were fought, a house was built, simple, quiet, free. Inside it, Elias cooked terrible food, and Varel pretended to hate it. Children came from nearby colonies to hear stories. They didn't ask who started the war. They only asked, "Is it true you saved each other?" And every time Varel would smile gently and say, "He took a bullet for me, so I took the galaxy for him." The warrior who found peace. The war did not end with fire. It ended with silence, then with whispers, then with change. Months had passed since Varel and Elias stopped the weapon that could have restarted the war. Now they lived on a quiet moon, in neutral space. No banners, no armies, no threats, just them. The house was small, built from dark wood and alloy scraps, surrounded by glowing trees and a peaceful blue sky. Elias kept the garden alive. Varel trained in the mornings with a dull blade, not for battle but to stay balanced. Sometimes children from nearby colonies came to see them. They didn't believe the stories at first. The alien who used to kill humans. The human who gave his life to save one of them. But the moment they saw them laughing together, they started to believe. Varel kept her blade on the wall. She hadn't touched it in weeks. She didn't need to. Not anymore. One evening, as the stars began to appear, Elias sat on the porch, writing into his datapad. He was working on something new, a simple guidebook for peacekeepers, humans and Zurnari. Step 1. Don't assume the other side is a monster. He smiled and looked up. Varel was watching the sunset. Her scars had healed. Not all, but enough. She turned to him and said, "I still have dreams of the war." "I do too," Elias said, "but now they end differently." She walked over and sat beside him. "What happens in yours?" "We survive," he said. "You stab fewer people, I get to kiss you without bleeding." She smirked. "Sounds boring." "I could add explosions," he offered. "Add soup," she said. "You still can't cook." A breeze passed, quiet, clean, and for the first time, Varel closed her eyes and said something she never imagined she would say. "I'm not angry anymore." She had built her whole life around revenge, and then a human had stood in front of her, arms open, heart unprotected, and taken a bullet meant for her. Now she understood. Her blade had never brought her peace, but his kindness had. Later that week, a messenger arrived from the United Council, now a shared effort between human and Zurnari diplomats. They offered Varel and Elias a position, teachers at a new academy, peace instructors, a place where future generations would learn the truth and never repeat the old war. Elias looked at the offer and laughed. "Can we say no?" Varel read it, then paused. "We can say no," she said. "But maybe it's time we said yes to something new." The new academy opened on a bright green planet. In its center stood a tall silver statue, a warrior and a medic, side by side. Below it, carved in 2 languages, was a message. She vowed to kill any human, until one took a bullet to save her, and the galaxy changed forever. In the garden nearby, Varel and Elias walked hand in hand. Children followed them, some human, some Zernari, some both. They asked questions, they laughed, and no one feared the other. Not anymore.